welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Marita Tedder. She is a speaker, as an author, and also we'll learn from her so many things about personality types, home design, as well as about different stages of life, how to embrace life after 60 with confidence. We'll talk about all this with her, and we'll also talk about her book, Wired That Way. Welcome to the show, Marita.
Thank you, Ajay. It's a treat to be with you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about relationships, we'll talk about personalities, we'll talk about life beyond 60. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Yes, well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm 66 years old now, about to be 67 in October. So that gives me some expertise and a lot of history and background. But I come from a family of writers and communicators. My mother, Florence Littauer, has authored 40 books. She's now deceased, but in her day, she wrote 40 books, and her best-selling book was on the personalities. It's called Personality Plus. And that particular book has sold millions and millions of copies, translated into many, many languages. And I grew up under her teaching and her experience. And she became an expert on this topic when she wasn't an expert at the time, but she first became into this topic when she read a book called Spirit Controlled Temperament by Tim LaHaye. And as she read that book, it was the first time that she realized that just because she was different from my father did not make her wrong. And she started sharing this information with people in our church and having small groups in our home. And I was 9 years old at the time, and I've already told you how old I am now, so you can do the math. I grew up with this material. So that's my background on that particular subject matter of the personalities, which is the basis of my book, Wired That Way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you talk about personality designs, you talk about home designs, means help us understand what is it that you want to do, what is it that you want to tell people, which is it more important? Is home design the better? How do people home design as per their personality design? In terms of personalities, they have their own preferences, and in terms of personalities, how do you understand how different types of personalities work? Let's understand from both these aspects. The way it is good, you are the expert of this, so I thought, why not put all of them together so that you can answer them your way, and the way the pace that you want to take.
Yeah, I'll give you a little additional background. I focus on my background on the topic of personalities, but I've had to reinvent myself several times throughout my lifetime, as many people do, I think. And that's why I like to share that, is that I had spent the majority of my adult life as a speaker, a motivational speaker, traveling around the country, doing seminars, speaking at luncheons, and so forth, usually on the topic of personalities, but not always. And then my mother and I together developed a course that we called the Class Seminar, where we trained people, men and women, to be speakers and writers. And as a result of our efforts, hundreds of books have been published because we train people in taking their experience and their expertise and launching it into a successful ministry and or business. And when my now ex-husband left me suddenly, I went on a vacation with a girlfriend, a girl trip. And when I came home, my husband had moved out. And that was quite a bit of a shock to me. And for someone who was, earned my living on relationships, having my husband leave was really life-changing for me, because it's difficult to be a relationship expert when you can't keep your primary relationship alive and going. And I ended up leaving that work and reinventing myself, I became an energy expert. And I took over, which is a funny story. We don't have time to go into the whole thing, but I took over a nonprofit organization that a friend of mine's husband had been running, and he hated it, and I loved it. And for a decade, I spoke and wrote on America's energy issues. And by that, I mean oil, gas, and coal. I don't mean, like chakras and so forth, but I spoke on natural gas, oil, and coal, wrote on it all over the country for a decade, during which time I met my now husband, and his last name is Tedder, so that's where that comes from. And after we'd been married a short while, I said, I don't really need to do this anymore because we have Trump in the White House. This was 2016. And I said, and he's the biggest energy advocate there is with the biggest bully pulpit. So the industry doesn't really need me. What I'd really like to do is flip houses. And my education in my youth was in interior design. And so that's not as out of left field as it might seem. And he said, okay, I could do that. And so I did. I've now been doing that for 8 or 9 years now. Went and looked at 2 new jobs, as a matter of fact, yesterday. So that's kind of where the home design element comes in. And my expertise is not in actually laying tile or putting paint on the wall, but bringing the whole project together and helping my customers get what they want. But certainly to tie that together, Ajay, is the understanding their personality definitely plays into my relationship with that customer and the type of designs they're inclined to want. Do they want to do something more fun and a little bit wild? Do they want to do something very traditional that will last for years and years? And there's definitely a connection there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it is a good thing people can recognize their talents and keep on understanding things there differently. Means everybody should look at things what works best for them, and I don't see that. Very rarely we'll find people who have not changed courses or did this course correction. Even in
Yes,
my case earlier, I started with being full-fledged journalism, but then I took this whole thing that was available because of technology, and now
yes.
we are able to talk across, from with guests from different corners of the world, how to make best use of all that
And what a
and in
great
different
opportunity.
times. Absolutely, absolutely. As you talked about energy only transform from one form to another. It neither gets created nor destroyed. But in talent case, it is there. You get educated of something, then later you realize this is the best you can use for a particular thing. So coming to the personality, and that is perhaps also part of personality. That is where a lot of people right they are a specialist. When some people say they are multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate. So I want to understand then about personalities. Help us understand. You have written that book also. We'll come to the book separately, but first to understand the personalities itself. How do you look at personalities? What is it that you understand about personalities? What would you like to tell the audience about understanding different personality types and making use of that understanding to make their life and relationships the best, even in business or life in different aspects? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. You've summed it up beautifully for me, though. You've set it up nicely. So everybody's different. When I'm speaking on this topic, I always start by asking, how many of you have noticed there are people out there who are different from you? And everybody raises their hand because, of course, everybody has noticed that. I then say, how many of you live with, work with, or used to live with that person who's different from you? And of course, they respond accordingly. And then I ask, how many of you have ever tried to change that person? And by now they're laughing because everybody has tried to change someone who's different from them. And so they laugh, I say, how often has it worked? And by now they're with me and they shout back, never. It doesn't work when we try to change those other people. So what's best is to learn to understand, get along with them. And then the mature thing, which is the real key here, is to adjust your approach to them. And again, as we mentioned briefly, I use this in dealing with my home remodeling customers as I approach them. if I come in too strong and they're a more mild mannered personality, I overwhelm them and we're not going to click. But by being able to quickly identify someone's personality, which is one of the things we'll hopefully discuss here, you can adjust your approach to that person. So there's basically 4 basic personality types. Now, of course, there are varieties, just like a color wheel. Some are more one way than another, but basically, there's 4 personality types. And we describe them, I say we because it's my mother and those who teach, because I do certify people to do training using these concepts. So when I say we, that's who I'm talking about. But what we like to use the original Greek word, because these ideas came from Hippocrates thousands of years ago, the great Greek philosopher Hippocrates, and he determined that people were different because they had different fluids in their body. And so he used terms to describe that. I like to add to those Greek terms a modern day adjective, which helps us understand what that Greek word means, at least a little bit. And then I also like to add a color to enhance the knowledge, to help people understand it. So I like to call, here we've got a little graphic here, I like to call what we have there we are, the popular sanguine is the loud, outgoing, fun-loving, energetic kind of person with the color yellow. There we are. And so that person is the one you might say is the life of the party, the one that you might say never met a stranger, the one that you might say talks too much. So we all have strengths and weaknesses within each grouping. So that's the popular sanguine, which represented by the color yellow, like the classic happy face. Then there's the powerful choleric, represented by the color red, strong, goal-oriented, driven. Red, think of fire engine. And so that's the powerful choleric. They're the natural bosses of life, the leaders of life. They're the ones that are goal-oriented and driven. Some people will say they're bossy, they're controlling, and they're domineering. And because they are usually right, they also have a difficult time apologizing because they're usually right. So apologizing is not part of their world. Then we have the blue is the perfect melancholy personality. Now, one thing to point out, the arrangement of these squares, the top ones are the outgoing, energetic ones. And so their colors are hot and they're on the top of the chart because heat rises. The bottom 2 are the cooler colors, and they're the more low-key personalities. Both of these, the peaceful, perfect melancholy and the peaceful phlegmatic, are both the more low-key ones. The perfect melancholy is the natural organizer. They like things neat and tidy and detailed. And one of their mottos might be, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And they want perfection from everybody else. It's not so much that they're perfect, because they're very critical of themselves. They're very hard on themselves, but they expect perfection from everyone else. And they tend towards depression a little more than any of the other types because of their expectation of perfection. Life is seldom perfect. And when you expect life to be perfect, you're going to be disappointed more than the others. And lastly is the peaceful phlegmatic, represented by the color green. This is more the watcher of life, the person that doesn't step up and volunteer. They don't say, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I just discovered recently that I'm in charge of a major event. Doesn't happen for 3 years, but I'm in charge of it. And I didn't recall that I agreed to do that. But I kind of said, well, yeah, maybe. And there I am in charge. But the peaceful phlegmatic, they don't do that. They don't end up suddenly in charge because they don't volunteer for things. They're more the watcher. They're like, I'll come to the event, but I'm not going to run it. I'm not going to put it together. This is the person that's content in the recliner watching TV all day long, where this personality type, they need to get out and go do things. So there's a contrast. Now, another thing important about this arrangement is these 2 are totally opposite from one another. You've got the driver and you've got the watcher. And then these two are opposite. You've got the outgoing talker and you've got the introvert who prefers to stay in the background. So there's a lot of connection to the placement of this that we've developed over years of teaching this material that really is ancient material, but we've brought it into the modern world. And in fact, we have an online personality profile of a paper personality profile here that people can take that helps them know what their personality is. But we also have an online version available for anyone anywhere in the world to take.
Absolutely. So what should people do with this much of information? Then it will happen that the wife has also one piece of paper and the husband has all the one piece of paper, and most of the time they are referring that piece of paper. I don't know how do people utilize all this information, Marita?
Well, first you need to understand it. You need to acknowledge that there are those people who are different from you, but then assuming that you care enough about that other person, and that is a thing. The person at the fast food restaurant who's taking your order, you probably don't care enough about them to go out of your way to change your approach. But like I mentioned in my remodeling customers, if I have a customer who I know I can identify by looking at the body language, by looking at the mannerisms, by looking at the way they keep their home, I can identify that this person is the perfect melancholy. But I come in like this, which is me, and I come in strong and loud and hands moving. I'm going to overwhelm that person. But because this is my client and I care about that relationship, or as in my case, this is my husband and I care about that relationship, then I have to step outside of who I am and adjust my approach to that person. Like, I don't expect my husband, I mentioned, can sit in the recliner all day. That's who he is, and I accept that. Now, gratefully, he's a great provider and is a good worker when he's working, but he doesn't prefer to work. So as soon as he comes home from work, he goes straight for the recliner. And I understand that about him, and I let him do that. Now, previous wives of his have nagged him, and they didn't understand that that is who he is. And when you understand that about someone, and the key thing is you care enough about that relationship to step outside of who you are naturally and give that person what they need. And so I believe that being able to identify the personality type of the people with whom you live and work is really key. Understanding yourself is good, but I find that really understanding those other people, and then, like I said, caring enough to step outside of who you are naturally to approach them in the way that works for them and understand who they are and accept that that's who they are.
Absolutely. Very well explained that, Marita. And if a
Thank
lot
you.
of people will have such a great life if they understand this part of personalities. But if I have this piece of paper with all the personality types, how do I utilize in business? A person comes, like we have we have spent 23 minutes along, together with the pre-recording and all. So how, within the same period, suppose if it were a business person, how would you assess their personality type? What have you assessed about my personality type in the last 20-22 minutes that you have started talking to me?
Well, you assess their personality type. Ideally, you might have them take a personality profile. But in a business relationship, it may be awkward for you to go up to someone and say, I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time with you. Would you please take this personality profile so I can figure you out? If you're in a tough relationship with someone, you probably can't do that. But there are some very specific, what I call visual clues that you watch for. And if you watch me, Ajay, you see that my hands are part of how I talk. I've had people say to me, if I tied your hands behind your back, you probably couldn't talk, could you? And no, they're a part of that. Well, they're part of my popular sanguine or the yellow personality. And I talk a lot. That's part of who I am. So when you know those visual clues, if you could look around my space here, now back there, I keep it tidy so it looks good for y'all. But if you could see what's right here, there's a lot of stuff that's here. And you can identify that in someone's personal space. If you walk in to someone's office and they have personal things around, pictures of their family, their pet, awards they've won, but their desk is very messy and littered, chances are they're probably the popular sanguine personality, though they may be this one here, the peaceful phlegmatic, because this one is also more casual. They're going to be more quiet and low key, but they're not as concerned about the tidiness that those on this side of the chart are. So Ajay, you asked about you. I mean, I've noticed you're wearing black. You wear black all the time. I've watched some of your other recordings before you and I came on together, and you don't use your hands a lot. So I would presume you haven't talked a lot because you let me talk a lot, but you haven't jumped in, you haven't interrupted, you're a very gracious host. So I would presume you're at least a good part this personality. And this is a quickie analysis, I realize. I presume you're a good part this, but you've also got to be a good part the powerful choleric. I would guess you're close to 50-50 here, because if you were purely the perfect melancholy, you would not have taken the steps that you have taken to establish this master class, as you like to call it. You would not have taken this risk to reach out to people internationally and put this program together. So when I look at you, you kind of have this intense look on your face, and that's part of this personality type as well, is that intensity. How did I do?
Very good, very good. Except for the except for the hands part, I do use, but sometimes maybe in your case, I am not using much, or maybe it all depends on different say
Well,
moments. And
it
one,
also in this format, a lot of hands can be irritating to the viewers. I realize that.
yeah, and moreover, it has nothing. But you are absolutely right in your assessment from that point of view. It has nothing to do with hands, but yes, I do move my hands a lot, but many a times I also have to be, and I move it too much, so I have to be sure that I don't hit on this mic also. It may
Yeah.
fall down, and it's all connected. So sometimes as a host, you need to take care of, and you're right in that sense that outside I may be like I'm talking to you very energetic. I am energetic in that sense as a personality, but I am also very serene type, very cool type, and do not want to understand things much more peaceful. But outside I will be a totally different person.
Well,
A
and
lot
that
of
would be,
people,
like I said, that would be the blend here.
absolutely, that is why I say I was means smiling silently and could understand you are
I love that,
absolutely
smiling
absolutely.
silently.
Yeah, absolutely right in that sense. But the hand part I just told because it is only for the moment. But yes, I do use my hands much, but depending on the occasion. That way, I am very the adjusting type. Now, in a quick way, people, how do they maximize the use of such knowledge? Is it more for say relationships, or is it more also for business wise? People can actually make use of this
No,
even in quick situations.
it's definitely for business as well, and it also pertains to. In fact, I've got a whole nother little chart here on. It says workplace, piecing together the personalities in your workplace, and on this it talks about what role different personality types have. Now, I mentioned that my husband is this bottom two. Well, he's an accountant, he's a CPA. He sits in an office all day long, punching numbers on a calculator, and he never sees people. Some days he never sees a person. And he's happy with that. He's very happy with that place in life. Now, if I had that job, I would probably rather die than have that job, because, and he says about me, dates, times, and numbers are not your friend. I've worked very hard to learn my schedule so that I could be here for you today when you're expecting me. And that I really had to work at it. I had a Zoom call. It was not a podcast, but I had a Zoom call with someone who's taken my personality training certification course, which is available online. And she had gone through the course. And at the end of the course, they're supposed to do a Zoom call with me to get, that's their final exam. And I forgot it. And I told, it's the first one I've missed, honestly, because I really work at this. But, you know, so in business, our personality type can dictate for us what jobs are we going to be a natural fit for? What roles are we going to excel in naturally? And as intelligent human beings, it doesn't mean I can't learn to get scheduled. It doesn't mean that I can't learn to balance my checkbook, though I never bother with that, frankly. But it doesn't mean that I can't learn a skill that's not natural to me. It doesn't mean I can't excel in a job role that is not natural to me, but I will be happiest in a job role that is natural for me. And so in business, that it definitely plays a role in identifying the people we're interacting with, but also where am I going to be the best fit?
Absolutely. So coming to the book itself, it's such a vast topic. How have you dealt all this in your book Wired That Way? What is it inside the book that we haven't talked till now?
Well, everything we've discussed today is in the book Wired That Way. And Wired That Way is available on Amazon. So wherever you are, you can get it. And if you are a Kindle Unlimited member on Amazon, this book is free for you. It's free on your Kindle for Kindle Unlimited members. And that's the best place to get the book is from Amazon. And it's also available in an audiobook. Now, I just flipped through it and there were some underlines in there. If you get the audiobook, you can't underline, of course. But there's an audiobook, there's the Kindle book, and there's the paper book. So it's available in a lot of different ways, whatever works for folks. And as I mentioned, the online personality profile, which is the electronic version of this paper copy. Because for those around the world, you know, it's not cost effective for me to ship you this. Although I have one of my certified personality trainers is in Malaysia, and she just reached out to me over the weekend saying, I need to order another 1,000 personality profiles. And she likes, for her clients, she likes to use the paper copy better than the electronic copy. So different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely. So, in a nutshell, what do you want readers of your book, those who want to understand personality types better? In a nutshell, what would you like to tell them?
I want to tell them that this material, though it's simple and easy to understand, and I realize there are other systems out there. What I'm talking about is not the only system out there. But what people repeatedly tell me that they like about the Wired That Way approach is that it's easy to remember quickly. And with just a brief amount of information, it can really be life-changing for your relationships, both at home and in business.
Absolutely. There's so much to learn about all this from you, Marita. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about personality types, take the test, also learn from your book, buy your book. What is the best way for them to do so?
The website is simply thepersonalities.com. The letter THE, thepersonalities.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.